Welcome to Larry Rinker Golf Live. Hope you're having a great week. My special guest this week, 2018 PGA Teacher of the Year, James Sieckmann. And James, always great to have you on the show, buddy. How you doing?
My good friend Larry, I'm doing so good. I appreciate being on. Always good to talk golf with you.
Well, Muirfield, back-to-back weeks. Were you there last week?
Yeah, I was there for the work day, and it's interesting having the same course 2 weeks in a row. One of the interesting things last week, they were, obviously you can't get it like tournament super brick hard fast and keep it alive for 2 weeks in the summer heat in Ohio. So they topped off the rough early last week, and they're just going to let it grow all the way up through this week. So the rough should be a little thicker for the Memorial than it was for workday. And the greens were holding. I don't expect them to hold much this week. I think they'll be firming them up, and I think the course will play a little bit more challenging. I'd be surprised if, I think, what was it, 19 under par one last week? I bet it's probably more like 12 or 13 this week.
Yeah, and they're probably not going to cut the rough, as you said. So you're the master of the short game. You've written two great books, your short game solution, your putting solution. What do you work on with your players hitting out of that Kentucky bluegrass, ryegrass that's up there at Memorial?
Yeah, so interesting. And also in the Midwest, you'll start to get a little bit of the bent grass grow in from the fringes. And so you'll sprinkle in some bent grass rough, which I think is even more challenging. But typically you need speed at the bottom, Larry. You don't want to drag the handle across the ball. I think you want to get the head moving, get it traveling at the bottom. You might think of it like splashing the ball out of there. And typically I want to see some smooth, positive acceleration kind of through and under the ball with the club head.
Well, you and I really are on the same page with when it comes to short game in a lot of areas. And to me, when I look at short game, I just think it's as simple as using your trail hand and just feeling this toss with the right hand. And, so like you said, so many people are trying to hit it pull turning and holding the face open. And to me, I just think these are myths, James, that you control the distance with your pivot, you hinge and hold the angle, you turn through the ball, and you try and keep this club face open. To me, when I let the club head have a free orbit and toss it, it seems to want to track kind of right on the plane, even past the ball. So, I think that's something you and Stan Utley and the Stocktons, we all kind of agree on. We're really talking about that when it comes to this high release that, we're letting this club head pass the lead arm. We're not trying to hold the angles.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. I feel the same way. Interestingly, things change, obviously, when you put your left hand on there as well, because now your chest has to move a little bit to allow for the right arm motion to be exactly the same. And one of the things I will get a lot of amateurs that come to me that really struggle chipping, they say, I chip so much better one-handed.
Right.
Just like if I just go right arm only, I'm amazing. And then all of a sudden I put my left on there and I can't hit it. And one of the things I like to do is I like to say, okay, if the right arm would move like you're swinging right arm only, what would the left arm have to do to allow that to happen? And so I'll do a lot of left arm only drills, just like you have. And what you're seeing right there is extension in the back of your lead wrist post impact. That's cupping
Right
in the back of the left wrist. And typically you'll see a little folding of the lead arm elbow as well. The folds kind of goes up and around the corner.
Right.
And so many people are hanging on with that left hand, and that's impeding the flow and the rhythm and the fluidity of the release. And so if I get a student that says I chip great one arm only, if they're not going to do it that way in competition, then I'm saying, well, we're going to train left arm only and learn the movement that allow you to basically feel that right arm swing as effectively. God, that's gross. Don't show that.
Here's no right arm. And this is what everybody's teaching. Don't show it. I love it. Here's what it looks like face on. It's this.
So bad.
We call it a wipe.
Well, what you're also seeing there too is when the handle drags and pulls to the left, typically the upper body will tilt back. It's kind of a countermeasure, right? And so not only are you getting a handle pull that's going to allow for weak and right, but as that head goes back, as your upper axis tilts back, you're asking for just a blade and a chunk. So one of the things as you see there when you go left arm only is how your head stays forward.
Right.
And the energy kind of flows forward. You don't get any of the tilt.
Well, one of the things you've done, I give you the credit. I give it all the time when I'm giving a golf lesson, is you've really come up with this whole idea of steeps and shallows. And I've come up with about 4 sets of them now. But one that you're talking about is if my body doesn't move at all, we'd call that a neutral, right? Didn't do anything.
Yeah, if it stays centered, let's say centered over the ball.
Yeah. If it flows into the left foot, which we want, that's our good steep, isn't it?
That's 100% good steep. Exactly right. And that's going to allow you to have the good shallow, which is the club releasing.
Right. The good shallow is this release. That's the good shallow. And as you say, we want balance. If we have a steep and we have a shallow and a neutral, which is the club head on plane, we're in great shape. But how many times do you see your students, like you're talking about, that the body moves backwards? That's a bad shallow, isn't it?
Bad shallow, yeah. Because then obviously, if you released it like you should, you'd hit behind the ball, you stole it across the green. So then you create a bad steep to make up for it, which is the handle drag. So the reality is we need to be steep enough in our setup, in our backswing, so that we can be shallow through the ball with our release.
Right.
And so the setup's critical, I feel. And then, like I was saying earlier, a lot of people can intuitively release the club right arm only, but the minute they put that left arm on there, if it's not relaxed and allowing it to kind of fold like it should, then they screw it up.
So here I am. These rods just represent a slightly open stance and club face, James.
Right.
And you can see how, the club is just releasing going through.
Right.
I mean, I had a good player. Let me see if I can find his video. But
let me say something about that video. So some of the people that know my stuff, they're going to go, wait a minute, the head of the club's above the plane in the backswing. And in my book, I'm just going, hey, my preference is on plane. The shaft plane established at address, but there are plenty of great players that play from above the plane. Olathable, Furyk, they chip like gods, but you cannot deliver the club properly from under the plane. So you want to be on plane or above, and the toe of the club, if anything, needs to be somewhat skyward.
So under the plane would be here.
In the backswing. It's just
that's just no good.
It's a barrier to entry, yeah. And usually it's not only, if you take that square and move it down by your right ankle, typically not only when it goes in, it also stays really low to the ground, right?
Yeah.
So it's under, and then if you get the club under and closed, wow, then you're really in dire straits.
No, that's, because you can't release it from there.
Cannot.
But it's interesting how I've always kind of been above the plane. Here's another one.
Like I said, but you got Olathable, who may be one of the best evers that puts it in the same spot. You got a chance there if you release the face properly, but you just can't do it from underneath. No,
you can't. And then here I am down the line hitting a bunker shot, basically same setup. And now with the bigger swing, now there's the club on the plane coming into the ball. I always say a good bunker player, James, you got a slightly open stance, slightly open club face, and on plane golf swing.
Yeah, I would.
You're more square, aren't you?
I would square, and then I would say the hand path is neutral, so on plane delivery at the hands, but I like the throw of the head of the club to the left,
Right.
not the handle. So I would go on plane, hand path, and that throw would go just a little under your shoulder instead of above it there.
Right.
But I mean, you know what? The ball's in the air, so it doesn't know what the club head's doing at that point, and it don't care, right?
Well, it's interesting. This kind of matches what I do with the driver. I mean, it's
Right.
kind of funny that's kind of where I release the driver. And if you look, well, even an iron, if I showed you an iron swing, that's where it's exiting. So
Right.
I tend to do that. But you talk about we're talking about our steeps and shallows here, and so above the plane is steep, on the plane is neutral,
Right.
under the plane is shallow. So that's kind of your second set. We got our body, and then we have plane. And
Right.
then
So body at address. So I like a little open stance, open chest, open forearms. That would be a steep.
right,
And a lot of people set up like a driver. They tilt behind the ball, their chest is closed, and that's a recipe for disaster as well. Because if you're set
right.
up closed, there's a very good chance you're going to take it in.
Yeah, yeah. So the slightly open stance makes you a little steeper. And I'm
Yes.
using my putting grip here, James. This is just me getting closer to the ball on these versus here where I'm a little further away.
Right.
You
A lot
see,
of times, Larry, I think the viewers don't realize that your proximity to the ball will have a lot to do with your trajectory control. So, there's an old saying that you can't get too close to a chip, so if you're trying to flight the ball down, you want to be right on top of it, eyes over the ball, almost like a putt, I think. And then if you're trying to hit the ball a little higher, I think you want to scoot away and lower the handle a little bit. And when you lower the handle, that adds cup or extension in your left wrist. And if you keep that in your backswing, that'll get that toe open and rotated open so you could really release it and pop that thing right up in the air.
so closer to the ball, you can see that 64-degree lie angle, and then you see here 62, a little further away.
Right.
Closer to the ball, we actually have taken a little bit of loft off of it, haven't we?
Correct. Yeah. And the plane shifts a little bit, obviously more vertically.
Right.
And so, yeah, I always feel like get close to hit it low and scoot away and lower your hands to hit it high.
So we talk about the release. We talk about, really we want the good steep, the weight in the left foot. And as you said, just this natural early release.
Right. Stop it right there, Larry. Go back to just where the club's on the front of the ball, and one more forward, another, one more stop. All right. So one of the things I write about in my book is that the shaft angle that you establish in your setup position, in your case, you might have 1 or 2 degrees of forward shaft lean there. It will return to 1 or 2 degrees of forward shaft lean, but at the front of the ball instead of at the back of the ball. So if you set it up, let's say you got the ball further back in your stance and you set it up with 7 degrees of shaft lean, now you draw a parallel line to it at the front of the ball, it'll return to that same 7 degrees shaft lean. So that's one way you can tell at home if you're releasing the club properly, if it matches out just on the front of the ball, just like you've done right there.
Yeah, somewhere 1 to 3 inches past impact is good, isn't it?
I would just put it right on the front of the golf ball.
Yeah.
And if the handle's pushed too far forward, then there's your handle drag. And if the handle is back, that's not a release problem. Typically, that's a slow lead arm or a slow chest problem.
Right.
So you can release it all you want as long as your arms and chest keep turning.
Yeah, yeah. But I remember I noticed this. I used to think, James, that I felt that I returned the shaft right where it was at address. But because my weight has moved into my left foot, it actually happens just past impact, like you're talking about.
Exactly. So I would say, yeah, your arms are returning the same angle, but the mass of your body has changed a little bit. So that brings the low point forward, right?
Right. But that's a good way to feel it. But anyway,
well, it's a good way to measure too. I mean, we want to measure. We don't want to like, how do you know if you're releasing it right? But now we have a way to objectify it, measure it. And I noticed that with Seve Ballesteros. I noticed with Raymond Floyd. I noticed with Corey Pavin. These elite players all returned it to the exact same shaft angle that they set it up on. It's just in front of the ball instead of back.
Yeah. And even if I'm going for a low release, where now I'm got the ball more middle to back in my stance, I'm still going to match that shaft in a similar place, aren't I?
Yeah, exactly right.
And on this
and obviously
one,
that gives you the low point control. Looks like it dug a little bit there. So my question would be, so there's a couple ways to add bounce or forgiveness to the club. And now some lies, if it's into the grain, it's just going to dig, especially on a big swing. Nothing you can do about it. But if the face is open to the swing direction, then you're adding effective bounce as well. So typically, when you lean the shaft forward, one of the mistakes people make is they keep the face dead pointed at the hole. But Phil Rogers was one of the ones that told me that as you push the handle forward, let's see, if that's the shaft of the face, as I push it forward, the face just moves right along with the shaft lean, and that keeps it from putting it, so to speak. And then if you swing towards the pin, obviously the face is open to the swing direction.
Yeah. Well, it's just I'm going to go back to these V1s, but it's to me, I look at it that I've got a low release. This one I stuck in the ground, and then I got a high release, and I think I did another one here last year. There was another video I put together of the high and low release. Seems like I've moved them from where they were, but it's just so interesting that people don't understand the high release, we let it go, and the low release, we really release against that lead arm, don't we? It's more of a punch shot, a trap shot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really feel that way personally. I just set up with more shaft lean on the low shot, and then I just release it the same way. And I'm always trying to make sure the head of the club's passing and that it points into my belly button, so to speak, instead of my left hip there. And now one of the things is my low shot's not going to go as low as your low shot. So that means, right, because a dynamic loft will be a little greater. So that means I got to be more adept at using my pitching wedge. When you might use your sand wedge, and I might switch to my pitching wedge. But yeah, essentially the same.
But what you're doing is you're allowing for more room for error where you hit the ground.
I think so. I mean, I could hit behind it, and I always use Tom Peniche as an example, who in my opinion is, modern players might be the best on the planet, is that he'll get a certain type of lie. It's a cuppy lie. He doesn't like it. He'll just open the club a little bit, and he'll hit behind it on purpose. And it'll go right up by the hole. You just go, watch this. I'll hit a quarter inch behind this, and you can kind of hear it, and it goes a foot from the cup. And, but that's the forgiveness you talk about. And I think that's also a mark, besides great rhythm, low point control. I think that's a mark of an elite player as well. Just the confidence. They know that. I always tell people that contact should be like breathing. It's like, you don't think about how you're going to breathe. Why are you thinking about your contacts? Let's think about making. And I think if the forgiveness is there, that allows you to kind of get off contact and then more into the shot.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I really like saying to people, I've kind of been doing this a little bit, like, where is the bottom of this arc? Can you learn how to brush the ground? Right? Can you learn how to brush it? And if you brush and you have bounce, you have a ton of room for error. And that's where, somebody that wants to play a lower shot, why not play it with a lower lofted club? And now I'm using the bounce. See, now that club's not sticking in the ground.
Right. And let's talk one more thing that we haven't talked about, which would be maybe the most debilitating steep you could have would be lowering yourself in the middle of your downswing. So if you got
Oh
that
boy.
circle at the top of your head there, most elite players stay level or get taller. You
Right.
might be a quarter of an inch taller. You can just see a tip of your
Yeah.
cap. Now,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't see any cap above the circle. If you stop at impact, I can see a quarter of an inch of your cap above the circle.
So
Pernice
there's
might be,
address and there's impact. So I'm
yeah,
going slightly.
you might be, Pernice might be 2 inches taller. It's crazy,
Really?
but you see the people that really struggle, the chili dippers, the ones that double hit and skull, they'll lower themselves in the middle. And the reason why is there's no room to allow the arms to extend or release. So if the upper body extends a little bit or goes up, that creates room for the throw, so to speak.
Right.
And if you're going down, you just got nothing.
Right.
So imagine this, Larry. Let's say you had your student, keep that picture up,
Okay.
and you turned towards your shadow that's on the ground.
Right.
And you maybe put a alignment stick on your head and you say, let's make 5 swings and let's stay level. Or if you're going to make a mistake, let's go up.
Right.
Hard to say mistake. And that would be an example of what I call block practice, which would be, let's make sure we understand our fundamentals and have simple ways to train them.
Right.
And you just start your day. If you're a knee dipper, and some people do it in their knees, some people do it in their chest, you got to get a sense for staying level so those arms can extend and the angles can come out.
Right. Well, I don't have to go too far with some pretty good players here. Not to bring this up, but this was at the Hero about 5 years ago, and here was Tiger with ball back, a lot of shaft lean, sharp leading edge, and trying to go left
Right.
and hang on. I mean, gee whiz, and then he comes up here and hits another one.
Well, let's talk about that from a strategy standpoint. Okay, if you have an end of the grain Bermuda lie, which is, as you know, is real sticky, it's a tough shot. It's a tougher
Right.
shot than a neutral lie. The last thing you want to do from a strategy standpoint is take a lob wedge and put it, which has the least amount of bounce, and put it back in your stance, which sharpens the leading edge and takes whatever bounce you do have off of it, right?
Right.
So if you would instead do nothing more than just take his sand wedge, open the face a little bit and play it forward, he would have a much better club turf interaction. And it's just like, I was with Chesson, this like a work day at Chesson Hadley, one of my tour clients, and he had an upslope, and it was one of those where he had to kind of one hop it on because it was a near pin. He didn't have room to fly it. It was a fairway lie. And he goes, I like low. I'm going to go lob wedge. And I'm thinking low lob wedge off an upslope, which means you're going to lean the shaft forward, and the hill's also creating angle. So you're going to just dig a trench, basically, is what you're saying. And I was trying to talk him into like, hey, maybe we should go low with a less lofted club. Let's go either sand, gap, or pitching. And he had to hit one fat before he would try the other and realize, oh, yeah, in this situation, because of the upslope, I'm better off with a little less shaft lean, a little less loft, a little more forward ball position. I know you're like me. You don't like that back ball position very much, do you?
Well, the thing is, I don't mind it on those low shots, and I've got good hand-eye coordination. I hit the ball. I don't chunk it hardly ever. But most of the people out there, they need that bounce for forgiveness. And the whole thing is, if you have the right geometry at impact and you still have a little bit of bounce, now you hit a little behind it and
Right.
you're going to still hit a good shot. But
Well, let's just agree then that into the grain Bermuda or a pretty severe upslope fairway lie would be a bad time to put it back in your stance. How about that?
yeah, I did a video, James. I said why you should never use your lob wedge for a low trajectory shot.
Yeah, good video, actually.
But anyway, well, it's been great having you on the show. And for people that want to learn how to get a hold of James, James is in Omaha, Nebraska, and at the jsegolfacademy.com, Shadow Ridge, and you can go see him there and work on your short game with the master of the short game. And just like to thank my sponsors, Tideless, FootJoy, the Ritz-Carlton Golf Club Orlando, and the Red Sky Golf Club in Vail, Colorado. And James, I just got to say, you've helped me be a lot better teacher. And I still remember that time we were together about 5 or 6 years ago at Core Golf Academy, and you taught me about the steeps and shallows, and there's a lot more to what you do than what's in this half hour. But
Appreciate that. It's the
keep
cool
doing
part
what you're
about,
doing, man, because you're really making a difference in not only the tour players, but all the people that are just trying to play golf and have fun.
there you go. And not only that, but the fun part of golf is in the learning and the growth, right? So
Yeah.
not only can players enjoy that learning and growth, but so can coaches.
Yeah, and we continue to learn from our students. And I love what you said there at the end. Hey, get taller. Get taller there. Don't go down. I mean, that right knee down and the right shoulder down. Man, we see that on video. We know that's not a good recipe. Thanks, James. All the best, buddy.
Go get them, Larry. See you, buddy.